Yeah, my
So
dog doesn't even react to squirrels, rabbits, lizards. Like, we
yeah,
were on a walk and like a rabbit was like literally a foot away. My dog just looked at it and just kept going.
like yeah, I'm bothered. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Without a Roadmap. This is the podcast for product folks who don't know all the answers. My name is Yonas. I'm joined by my co-host, Cameron.
What's going on, everybody? We are in episode 2 of our latest series, the Product MythBusters. Last week, we gave a little general overview of the common misconceptions on like the general product manager role. And today we were going to focus on kind of the misconceptions and myths about the day-to-day of a product manager in a company, regardless of what size or where you are, from our perspective at least. Don't want to speak for every PM in the world out there, because as we've learned, product is done differently at every company, and we probably have a pretty unique case of how we do product here at Parlor ourselves. So just to kind of run through quickly before we dive into each topic, we have 4 of them today. The first one being PMs just ideate new features. Second being, which is pretty related to the first one, product management should be all about adding new features and not improving or removing any existing features within your product. Third one being, once a feature is launched, the PM job is finished. And then the last one we'll wrap up with today is that PM should only focus on the roadmap and not customer interest.
Let's get into it. All right, so PMs just ideate new features came to me because in the process of getting into the product management role and like job application process, that was what kind of drew me into the space. And I thought that it was this cool creative role where you spent a lot of your time kind of like in the creative thought process of developing solution. Pontification was a lot of what I was looking for, and kind of the mix between design and product strategy. I thought that was like just kind of standard fare for a product manager. But as I've kind of learned on the job, that's definitely, and then just also learning more and networking with other PMs, just kind of developing an understanding for the role, is that first off, the majority of people with a standard PM role, actually aren't doing any feature ideation. So you think about, your average PM is, as a individual contributor, is actually more focused on the day-to-day with kind of helping take somebody's product strategy or an existing kind of understanding of the direction the product needs to go, and kind of helping with the day-to-day tasks to kind of execute on that. And a lot of that might include creative ways of kind of feature ideation, but in the most cases, you're kind of helping shepherd through somebody else's idea. I don't want to take away from that. That's a super important part of the job, but I think a lot of that kind of falls under like the project management kind of roles and responsibilities a lot, and also kind of better understanding, the underlying causes for why somebody should, ideate a new feature, but that someone is usually going to be somebody above the product manager, like a senior PM or a director of product. So that's kind of the first piece. Your job as a PM and kind of that more junior PM role isn't really feature ideation. A lot of times you're kind of trying to understand the customers, understand the product problem space, and use that information and provide that, so that, as a team, you can figure out what the best way forward is. And then once that, feature is kind of, conceptualized, you can help take that to, through development. But I think a senior PM or somebody more senior in the product team is generally involved in the feature ideation. But that also just depends on the size of your company.
Yeah, also depends, not depends, but I feel like you can do some form of feature ideation. Like it could be on a very, very small level, like kind of micro optimizations of the product based on the area you own as a product manager. So say, for example, you're assigned an area of a product or a feature set, and you're spying on your users in full story. You may think of optimizations that you think could improve like the overall user experience that you can then bring up with your manager, like, hey, I saw this happen, and I think we should do XYZ in order to provide a better user experience. I think, although like it's not like the big flashy features that people probably think of, it is a very important part of being a product person, like figuring out ways to improve the user experience from existing features, even though they may not be the brand new flashy ones that get all of the marketing praise and the big launches and all that stuff like that. But I do agree with you. Like when you're first starting out, usually taking direction from your manager or whoever that is, can be senior PM, director PM, VP,
CEO,
yeah,
your product visionaries.
Yeah, it could be whoever it is. You're pretty much taking either that vision or those features and reverse engineering, which is a pretty crucial step in building out your product toolkit as you kind of progress throughout your product career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious. Like, do you feel like that's does that take away from the role to you, the fact that you're not involved like heavily in the ideation piece? Or do you find it, exciting that you're kind of more involved in understanding the problem rather than kind of, developing your own solution?
I think starting off, I feel like it's probably more exciting in understanding the problem and kind of trying to understand why your
Understand
product.
the why.
Yeah, there you go. Understand why, like the product visionary or whoever the leading the product direction is choosing to prioritize those features and why it's doing what it should be. I feel like when you first start a product, you probably have all these different ideas like, hey, we should do this, we should do that, we should do this, because like you use products every day, like you're on your iPhone every day, you're using products on the internet, using all these SaaS tools. You probably have your own ideas of how to improve different SaaS products or how to improve your own product if you're not in product management. But sometimes I would say when you first start off, they're probably not always the best ideas to go forward with immediately. And so taking the direction from whoever your manager is and getting in the reps of reverse engineering the product features and just going through all those reps, it kind of like builds out your product toolkit and like your product instincts into like what's a good design, what's a good solution, trying to think through all the edge cases and building the feature. Like, so the product person could say, hey, we want to do this. And they don't think through all the different edge cases that a user could go through and potentially break the system. I think that's pretty important as you progress in your product career, because when you're handing things off to your engineering team, if you can account for as many edge cases as possible in the beginning, it saves development time and you can build more features faster in a shorter amount of time.
That's always something you want to optimize for.
Yeah, instead of having to go back and, oh, we forgot to add this, we found a bug once it's been released and you could have identified it a month ago. It's like,
Yeah. And at the same time, if you don't build that kind of understanding, that groundwork, and you try and jump straight into feature ideation, like that's where you might run into some kind of fundamental issues with like not, understanding the reason why and just jumping straight to a solution. So I think it is important that you kind of early in your career are kind of grounding yourself in
humble yourself.
Humble self. Yes.
Going into the second point, it's pretty similar, I would say, to just ideating new features being a common misconception. The second point being product management is all about adding new features and not improving or removing existing ones. I think it's pretty important to always be refining, and there's a big thing in product management iteration, always iterating on existing products, especially if it's like your core product features and workflows. Those can always be improved, especially as you add additional features. And I feel like if you're not always wary of the features you already have and you're only focused on this adding more and more and more, you can run into a bunch of problems. The main one standing out to me is that you run into a product that's just full of bloated features that not everybody is using, and people aren't really finding the value in the new features you're pushing out. So if you're just building a whole bunch of new features, you can end up having a product full of just different point solutions that don't really connect to each other. And so you have a list of features over there, a list of features over there, and then they're just all doing their own thing and they're not telling like one cohesive story. And then that also can kind of go against like your product strategy. So if you're designed to do XYZ, and you're building features that align with the new strategy, but then you also have existing features that don't really align anymore. Like, how do you address those existing features to kind of match your new product strategy and positioning, so that you're telling one cohesive story for your customers, and then also the prospects that are going to be getting demoed of the product and see like, oh, this is what I'm buying the product for.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's super important, especially when you're working at like an earlier stage company where you're still kind of piecing together what the story, or the kind of end to end workflow is. I guess not to be specific to SaaS, but that's what I can speak to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's really important that you're able to tell that story, and just thinking about what the next feature is going to be, isn't always going to be helpful to kind of completing that story. And
Exactly. Yeah.
as PMs, we love to, kind of put out the sexy, shiny new features. That's what we get excited about.
Mhm.
But I personally get really excited about the ability to kind of put something out and then kind of continually watch and learn and speak with customers and better understand how to improve upon it. Because I feel like that's always it's not as exciting. It's not, you don't put out a big release for V2 generally. But I don't know, there's something cathartic about kind of phasing out a release, breaking it into, a couple different stages and being able to watch it grow. And
It's like a seedling just sprouting out
yeah.
to the world.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you just want to get something out quickly, and you don't have time to put out the whole shebang. So you get what you can out there quickly to try and provide some value. Watch
Mhm.
how your users interact with it, and then in the meantime, kind of on the back end, you're thinking about what round two is. Sometimes it's already kind of planned out from the get go. Ideally, it is, and you get to kind of iterate and slowly kind of, just like a slow drip, it's
Yeah.
like
I mean, you could
it's
make
like
the argument that you should be doing it like that, because you
Mhm.
should let your customers, your users, try to guide that new feature and let them tell you what's most important. So you just give them
Yeah.
like the base foundation, and then from there you try to iterate with your customers, the whole customer collaboration model we try to do here, and let them help you build what's the most valuable and best product you can.
Especially for Parlor, being relatively early, definitely growing. We have so many things that all of our customers want, and it's not always the same, and you have varying levels of priority based on who it is, how it fits into your roadmap, and such and such. And so a lot of it is basically being able to understand, like, what can you get out quickly enough that's going to provide enough value, and then either worry about the next phase when somebody bugs you
Mhm.
about it and says what's good with the rest of this,
Right.
or and in the meantime work on the next thing, work on the next piece that's might not be completely related but is providing value to another segment.
Right. Provide 20% of the functionality to get 80% of the value.
Mhm.
That's the motto.
That's the motto. Yeah, for now.
Yeah, for now. We'll get there.
So that kind of following up on that, something that I hear a lot, especially earlier in my PM career, my already young PM career, was that the product manager's job is done once the feature has been launched, and that's something that I know to be wrong, now, and kind of laugh at, because it's far from done. Obviously, there's tons of iteration required. You're breaking down features into multiple phases, and in order to understand, to provide immediate value. But also after a feature is launched, there's so much more that you need to learn, and oftentimes what you learn might actually be that the feature isn't being successful. It's really sad to say, but and not at Parlor, but at my last company, we had to sunset some features. In one case, we actually sunset the entire, product. Essentially, we basically, we moved away from our legacy platform, and that was for the, for the better. That was, we just spent a lot of time redeveloping it from the ground up, and that's kind of at a high level.
How did that work? Like so if you're sunsetting, 'cause I was kind of involved with this my last company. I didn't ever see it to fruition because I left before then. Um, but we were doing the same thing. We were building a new product from the ground up, and we had customers on our old legacy product. So how did you guys like transition those users from the legacy one over to the new one? Was just like a brand new login, new app? Like, hey, just log in here with the same credentials, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, so we gave folks the opportunity to transition over the new version, obviously, but we also left the legacy version open. And I think to this day, it's still, accessible.
Mhm.
And, some people swear by it. I mean, actually, I imagine that since we worked on it was an ed tech platform for medical school students, I would hope that all the people who were using legacy have graduated. I think that was kind of the idea that, at least like 4 years from now, maybe 6 to 8 for folks who struggle with the step one, they should probably have moved on. And I think, at this stage that, it's probably
Yeah,
run its course.
they either graduated or it wasn't for them.
It wasn't for them. Yeah, I saw a lot of those. RIP. But yeah, so it was definitely an interesting process because a lot of people, we told them straight up, we're not going to continue to improve this. There's going to be some, issues. You're not going to have a great experience. We highly recommend you to transition over. Not everybody did. And, we kept our word. We didn't continue to provide any updates. People would reach out like asking for support on the legacy platform. We're just like, hey, actually, we have a whole new feature or a whole new product that we'd highly recommend you transition over to. And so it's a lot of product marketing. It's a lot of communication. That was a B2C business at the time. So it's not like we're losing any big customers because we weren't up maintaining our the legacy platform. But it was just something that people had to get used to. And for the people who did, I think they got a lot more value out of it.
Mhm.
But about the feature launch not being the end all be all, it's really, you have to understand that, you have to understand that it needs to be iterated upon, but at the same time, when it's not doing well, that you have to kind of think about what the next steps might be otherwise. Sunsetting is not the only option. You can, kind of re-envision the feature by kind of looking back at the problem that you were trying to address. And, before that, you have to understand like what your success criteria were in the first place. Like, why do you think it's failing? So there's a ton that happens after a feature is launched. I guess I've only been speaking about the negative. The positive is, you get to watch people engaging with it. You get to set up, different KPIs to measure success within that feature, and then track those, communicate with the users to understand what they like about it, what could be better, and then continue to kind of build off that. So that's, to me, like one of the, I think I mentioned it in the last myth that, continuing on a feature is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, and I think also to add in there, it's kind of like the education around the new product feature. So you may be doing this before it's actually launched with your other like sales folks, customer success, support to just teach everybody how the new functionality works. But if you're not, you probably do it after the feature is launched, especially do like a slow launch or like a beta launch or whatever it is. Just teaching people how to use it. I feel like that's fascinating, especially internally, because they probably provide you the most honest feedback, direct one-to-one when you're just saying, hey, this is how the feature works. So you may get some fascinating insight just because you've been living and breathing the feature for however long it took you to develop it. So you may think everything is just so obvious and how to use it. But then once you put it in front of other people and they start asking questions like, wait, how do you do this? And so well that you just, hey, just click this button, but they can just be lost in the sauce and not ever find the button they need to actually click to start the new functionality.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I feel like that's probably one of the ones I would add to there as well. It can either be frustrating or it could be amazing, depending on how that goes, the education
Yeah.
part. Um, I would say the last one to wrap up for today would be probably the one that we may talk about most is that PM should only focus on the roadmap and not customer interest. What do you think about that one?
I don't know. I might take away the only. I don't know if anybody's saying only focus on the roadmap, because customer interests are, can obviously fall on the roadmap. And, at the end of the day, you're building for, ideally your top priority is to, build for what you think is going to bring revenue to the company. I guess, there's some
Yeah,
times
is
where
that
that's
always in
not
the
the case.
customer interest or is it?
Like the customers are bringing you revenue, and if keeping them happy is your top priority as a product manager, then yeah, they are always kind of a priority on the roadmap. But I guess it depends at the stage of the company and your product strategy, because maybe you're thinking about your long-term roadmap, and in order to get there, you have to really go heads down. It's kind of like Parlor at our earlier days, where we needed to go heads down, and as a result, we decided to not close some big customers so that we could focus on that long-term vision, rather than spending all this time building these like customized workflows for enterprise companies. So I think that was the right decision for us in the short term, and in the long term, even though we didn't get that, whoever knows how much, what company I'm talking about would have paid us.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
But it still was better for us in the long run, because we were able to go heads down and kind of attack our long-term product goals. And I think the product and the company is better off for it,
Mhm.
right now. So it really is going to vary.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like it definitely, the roadmap should be guided by customer interests, but there are going to be some items that you just need to do, whether that's in the customer interest or it's just not obviously aware of how the customer would value from it. One case being like maybe feature flagging your product to kind of gate um, your product so that when you have different tiers, not everybody can get the certain tiers because every certain features are behind a paywall that you have to either upgrade to or just actually buy the product, which are actually the same thing. Now I'm thinking about that. So like that's not obviously in the customer interest, but you need to do it for like your business. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I think that could be not guided by customer interest, but I think there's always like that percentage split where hopefully you're leaning more towards providing functionality and features that are in your customer interest, whether that's coming directly from the customer, like, hey, I want XYZ, or you just know that they want it, but they haven't actually asked for it yet. Like, it's a gap that's going to be brought up in the short term, maybe long term, if you don't address it now. And sometimes it's just more like back end technical stuff that you need to do in order to shore up like the business objectives you set for the company.
Yeah, and yeah, so it's definitely not so black and white. It's going to vary.
Yeah.
This is probably the toughest one, because I feel like as a customer feedback company, we recognize how important customer feedback is, and it always deserves a place on your roadmap. But at the same time, you don't want it to cloud your judgment, and keep you from building what you think is going to be important to your company long term. And I think that especially goes for earlier stage companies who
Mhm.
are kind of building out a product, and they kind of recognize where they need to be in the long term, but also have those
Right.
customers in the short term who might need some point solution, and you might be
Mhm.
able to provide it, but don't let it kind of take you off the path. And it's also going to vary based on some other factors, like the amount of money you have in the bank. As a startup, if you're running low on money, then like, who cares about your long-term vision? You're going to go out of business. So,
Right.
in that case, keeping customers happy should be your number one priority. But if you're a more established company, or you just raised and you got some bread to play with, then I think you could definitely make the case that focusing on your roadmap, and I would say maybe your product vision, because roadmap could have obviously include customer interests. Could be a priority as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like in the startup world, if you're trying to capitalize on like a market opportunity where no one's really solving for it now, you obviously want to prioritize that vision, just because you don't want a competitor to get there before you do. And so you try to have that balance of you're striving towards like the market opportunity you see, while also keeping like your current customers happy. So always trying to find that
Exactly.
that ratio and that balance. And obviously it'll shift over time, like as you get closer to fulfilling the V1 of product market fit, because product market fit is always ever evolving. I would say you can probably slow down on the roadmap being so guided towards like that vision, and try to focus on the customers that you may have ignored, and however many months or weeks that you focused heads down on striving towards that product market vision that you thought of, which is probably the art of a PM. How do you constantly decide what to do in the ever evolving battle?
You might be giving us a little bit too much credit. I don't know too many PMs are making those calls. The art of product, the art of product.
I thought it's product management as a whole. That's the
art.
How to prioritize things accordingly.
Seminar by Cameron Curry.
Nah, not there yet. But that is about it for episode 2 of the series.
Curious, did we change your mind on anything? Did we illuminate anything interesting? Please let us know, because we're going to do 2 more episodes of this.
Yeah, let us know if we're just chatting and this is not helpful at all. Hopefully it is, because we have been asked, I would say, quite a bit over the last year, especially for me, since starting at Parlor and being more out there on LinkedIn and just actually having a podcast to speak about stuff. I have heard people ask me like, what is product management? What do you do on a day-to-day? And that's always a changing answer, because product management is always a different day. There's no one set day where we do the same things over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah. This idea came from the people. We listened to feedback. So, hopefully everybody's finding this useful. If not, tell us to shut up.
And on that note, we will see you next week.